Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with New York Jazz Trombonist, composer, arranger, Grammy nominee, and NEA master artist Papo Vázquez. He opened up about his latest 2021 CD, Chapter 10, Breaking Cover, with the Mighty Pirates Troubadours. And he talked about his 45-plus year career spanning jazz, Latin, and Afro Caribbean music. Originally from Philadelphia, his young formative years were in Puerto Rico. By the age of 17, he headed to New York City, where he would record and perform with top artists in the salsa music scene. And that led to big gigs with jazz luminaries like Tito Puente, Dizzy Gillespie's United Nations Orchestra, Chico O'Farrill, Ray Charles, and so many others. He's got a great story you should hear. Enjoy.
I caught wind of your new album. I listened to it. There's certain instruments that really dig my fancy. I love the vibes. I love the trombone. I love those instruments that aren't like on the higher end of things that people want to go after all the time, but I always have respect for those instruments.
Oh, man, thank you.
The one thing I do want to talk about is, with the world being in a crazy place there that we're in right now, Chapter 10, Breaking Cover with the Mighty Pirates Troubadours. Talk to me a little bit about this coming out during such a time on the planet, during a pandemic and all of the things that are going on. Talk to me about the timing of this.
Well, the recording was supposed to be at the end of March 2020.
Yeah.
And so we already have been rehearsing, I guess we started rehearsing with January, something like that, February, January. And, we're rehearsing, and by the beginning of March, I actually started scheduling the recording at the end of March. So by the end of February, we were about, for the first week of March, we were ready to record, Then the second week of March, the president and all the governors of, the governors of New York and New Jersey and the tri-state area, they closed it. Everything shut down, so everything had to stop. It had to stop. It was disappointing, but, it was what it was. But we have to wait about 3 months later. So by the end of June, they started opening up and giving permission for a certain amount of people to be together. I think it was 10 or 20 people. So that's when we took advantage of that window, and we, of course, we were all, everybody wearing their masks, their gloves, See, but in us, the way I record my group, I've always used a recording studio called Kaleidoscope. So all the instruments have always been isolated anyway, because that gives me a good sound on each individual instrument when it comes down to doing the mix, So when you put everybody together, and especially if you're not playing a lot, so it just gives me more room to get everything nice and correct, and get a good sound. So that said, everybody was already isolated. I was going to be isolated anyway. So everybody had all the band members on Chapter 10 Breaking Cover had their own little room.
So with the strife that we've gone through collectively and with how trying it was to get this done, is there an extra special feeling with this release?
Oh, yeah. No, it was, because once everything closed down, so that meant that all the gigs were gone. Everything, so now everybody's supposed to be isolated in their house, very little contact with other human beings. When we did the first rehearsal, it was like something really, really special. And to this day, we're still suffering this, because, we're having, the concerts haven't come back, it's been very difficult. But at the same time, I sincerely believe that it's going to be a beautiful thing, because the public is going to really, really, and of course us, the artists, we're going to appreciate what we do more, live, because there's nothing like live music. You can listen to a record, you can see something on a video, you can watch somebody do something on your iPhone, but there's nothing compares to seeing that a live performance. You're sitting at a club or at a concert, and watching somebody do this thing, right there in real time, that's something extremely special.
And you've been at this for a while. How did the seeds of jazz get sprinkled into you? How did all this begin and take off for you?
I was born in North Philadelphia, and my beginnings as a quote-unquote professional musician. First, of course, everybody starts as an amateur musician. That was back in 1973 in Philadelphia, North Philadelphia. My uncle, who was a guitar player, I come from a musical family too. My uncle, my grandfather, they were all guitar players. They played Puerto Rican troubadour music. So I was always surrounded by music, and I also had a large family. So I had a lot of aunts and uncles, and I was exposed to different generations of music. Back then, and I'm talking to you in the early 70s. The most popular dance music was salsa, what they know as Latin music, dance music. The popular dance music of the day was that, and I snuck into a dance, and the band that was performing was Willie Colon. That led into one thing led into the other. Had some friends of mine that played trombone. They sold me a $5 trombone. From there, I started studying trombone in school, in elementary school, mind you, of course, junior high school, and then I auditioned for my high school is called Mastbaum Technical High School, which actually I got to learn a little years later that Lee Morgan went to that same high school. I'm already, they had great music programs back then, and so I had music every day. So that prepared me to play with the local band. So that's what so one day, my uncle sent the timbal players to my house around 9 o'clock in the evening to ask my father permission if he could. They needed a horn player, one of the horn players in the group that he was playing, because my uncle was a guitar player, so he played with one of the local dance bands. So they needed a horn player. He said, "Oh no, my nephew plays trombone." Right? So they went and got me. And in that band, to answer your question, I got to meet a gentleman by the name of Jimmy Purvis. He was the trumpet player. He was one of the trumpet band, and he was the one that I became real good friends with him. And he introduced me. I mean, I was already into music because I already had seen Willie Colon and the Jibaro music, the mountain music from Puerto Rico that my father and my grandfather that was their favorite music. So I was already, and my younger uncles, they were into like James Brown and the popular R&B music of that day too. So Jimmy Purvis, we became friends, the Black American, and he was one that introduced me to J.J. Johnston and John Coltrane. And I'm talking to you at the age of 14 years old, 14 or 15. So I remember going to his house, and when I heard JJ, it was like, so I immediately I understood that very clearly, but I also understood that to play like that, then that had have to step up my game, and I really have to sit down and really learn how to study this music, Then the second record was John Coltrane live with the Village Vanguard. That took me a little more time to understand. I remember when I first put on that, it was John Coltrane live with the Village Vanguard, Afro Blue. I think it was Afro Blue Brasilia. It was pretty out there for me, So I was like, I don't know if I understand this, but since the person that gave me that record, he was my very dear friend. And he was actually the first adult that became like a mentor, So I said, I'm going to keep on playing this record over, and I'll never forget that. Well, one day I played it and I said, wow, I understood it. It's amazing how the power of music,
Yeah, without a doubt. You do come from the land of Coltrane, and I got to wonder, did you always dream of getting to New York and being in a bigger environment?
Well, see, exactly. So now I'm the first band that I performed with was that band that my uncle was part of. Then I graduated to playing with some other bands, and then I the thing is that by the time I was on my second year high school, I'm performing with one of the top local bands who were alternating with the New York Latin band, like Eddie Palmieri, Larry Harlow. That's how I got to meet the guys from New York. That's how I was able to move to New York. Of course, what made it easier was that I also had an aunt aunt and uncle who lived in New York City, and that was I used that as a springboard to that's how my mother and my dad, they allowed me to go to New York. Well, can I go stay with my aunt Titi Yeya? Her name was Yeya. So I stay with my aunt Yeya. They said, yeah, okay, go ahead, you go. So that was the beginnings of my career as a professional musician in New York City.
How did it take off for you? I'm always interested whenever cats come into New York. How was it rough in the beginning? Did you get momentum quickly? How did it happen?
Well, you got to understand that I'm a young kid. I'm was I 18 years old? So I was a very, very shy guy. To this day, every time I run into one of those guys that was part of because my first gig in New York was with Chocolate Mentero, and I remember Oscar Hernandez. He auditioned me for that band, and from there I went to Larry Harlow. But I would always ask those guys, I'm always curious. Hey, did I play that well that you guys allowed me to play with you guys? Because for us in Philadelphia, to alternate with Eddie Palmieri or Larry Harlow, the New York band, that was like a big thing, And they say, yeah, you play really good.
Obviously, things have worked out. You've got a Grammy nomination. You're an NEA artist. Lots of things that have happened over your career. I don't want to know what your favorite award or recognition was, but what threw you for a loop? What did you not expect that you got?
Actually, the NEA Master Artist Award, that one was pretty special, and also the Grammy nomination is that to me was a special one too, because I was nominated for my a 17-piece Afro Puerto Rican Jazz Orchestra, and all the compositions, they were all my compositions and arrangements, and it was produced by me and a very good friend of mine. His name is Jesse Bermudez, and the Painted Bride in Philly. That came out of nowhere. Because first of all, we were able to get enough money to record the concert live, and that was it. You have enough money. I mean, that itself was a big feat. Just to get enough money to record this live with an 18-piece orchestra and bring them down to Philly from New York. That was the whole thing. And so you don't have any more money for any type of publicity. Try to. And we got nominated for a Grammy. That was something pretty big. And NEA a Master Artist Award that came after I created this thing called it was a multicultural thing that I composed or put together. It's called the Oasis Project, and I did that at Pregones Theater. That was with a 28-piece orchestra with strings and woodwinds, and I even had a pirate actor, had a ballerina. That was in 2010, and we even had. Did I mention the belly dancer? It was pretty out there. I had my nephew who was a great artist painting at the same. It was pretty wild. It was so out there that I wanted it to be like a virtual experience, So I wanted the theater to smell like coconut. the creators at Pregones, they said, well, I think that's a little bit too much. So what I did was I went and bought everybody in the audience what we call mantecaditos. Those are coconut ices. So I had my niece outside with a big chef hat, handing out free ice cream in the intermission. That was a special one. And then the year after that, that's when they gave me that NEA Master Artist Award. All the other awards, the New York Latino Award in 1979. I didn't expect that neither. And the Philadelphia Festival of Jazz and Performing Arts, Best Trombone, all kinds of stuff, man. So all these things I'm extremely grateful. Citation from the state of New York. Recognized by the city of Philadelphia. It's a jazz month one of the honorees for that April Jazz Month in Philly. I think about two, 3 years ago, and I was actually on the list with McCoy Tyner. That to me was pretty big too, you know. So it's been many blessings.
You've been around luminaries like Tito Puente and Chico O'Farrill, Ray Charles. The list goes on and on. What did you learn from the legends in jazz that in turn has helped you teach younger players that you're around?
I would say that you learn from performing with those great master musicians is that what we do is something extremely serious.
So why do you love jazz?
The beautiful thing about this style of music is that what we practice is the art of improvisation. You know, that's the beauty of this music. So you want to call it jazz or whatever you want to call it, but what we actually practice is the art of improvisation. And that's what makes it extremely interesting. You know, you could go see, you know, the practitioners of this art. You know, like for example, you could, of course, he's not around no more, but you know, imagine going to see Dexter Gordon. You know, you can see him 5 nights in a row, and every night is going to be a whole different show. You know, that is amazing.
We've obviously gone through a pretty hardcore year with this pandemic. How do you think the world of maybe not just jazz but improvised music, how do you think you're going to emerge stronger out of this? What do you think will happen with the musician that will make them stronger and therefore the community stronger?
I don't even know how to answer that question. All I know in my case is this is like during this whole time, it's resonated in my subconscious mind. Something that Slide, one of my mentors, who actually was one of my, you know, trombone mentors and teachers, he said that every time he has some time off, it gives him, you know, he takes advantage of that time to get to better yourself, to practice and to study, because see. That's the beauty of, like I said before, of this art. It's an improvisational art, so it's like you could you always there's always it's an infinite amount of variations and things that you could practice and do and you know, so that's why it's so beautiful, because it's like it's like you always got something to do. You always got something to practice, something to better, you know.
When we do return to music, when things open up more and you're back on the stage and we're back in the crowd, what do you hope we realize about the power of live music after all this time away?
How unique what we do is. Unique. This is a very special type of music that we have here in the United States. That, you know, because this is an art form created here in the United States. This is an American art form. You know, like my music. You know, the Afro Puerto Rican jazz thing. This is all our indigenous art form from here, and how unique it is, how beautiful it is. You know, there's a lot of music that's repetitive. You know, but when you're talking about something that's being spontaneously created in front of your eyes, that's something. You know, we are extremely lucky that we're able to experience this kind of stuff. I would say it's probably the closest thing to magic.
I agree, man. So my final question to you is this. It gets to the essence of you. Everyone has their idea of who they think you are, their perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, that you're the one that's living your life. Who do you think you are?
I'm just a regular guy, man. I'm just a regular guy that likes to watch TV and just, you know, practice my instrument, and just a regular guy, just a regular guy, and just here to be of service, you know. But Joe, before we go, let me mention the new CD, Chapter 10, Breaking Cover. It's available on my website on www.papovazquez.com, PAPOVAZQUEZ.com. And if you don't mind, I would like to mention some of the guys on this record. Of course, it's me, Papo Vázquez, on trombone. Ivan Renta on tenor saxophone, soprano sax, Rick Jermison on piano, Ariel Robles on bass, Alvesta Gunner on drums, Carlos Maldonado on percussion, Reinaldo de Jesus on percussion, and my special invited guest on this record is Jose Mangual Jr. Me and him, we were actually members with the Hector Lavoe and Willie Colon band way back then, way back in the day. And of course, Sherman Irby on alto saxophone is my invited guest. Desron Douglas on one track. My cousin Antonio Caraballo, guitar on track number 6, and Antoine Dry on track number 9. And we'll appreciate any support from everybody. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for inviting the Neon Jazz in Kansas City, Joe. Thank you.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in Philadelphia, New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Papo for his time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.